do you think at that point that I was thinking of laying on top of him, whether I was checking his breathing or I was watching my husband
I think
die? I mean, do you honestly think that my mindset would have been at that point? I mean, I
think based on everything, I think we know what you were doing.
This is Jan Sokalski. For 40 years, Jan, a former nurse, has been married to her childhood sweetheart, retired police officer Henry Butch Sokalski. To everyone who knows them, they're a devoted couple who've built an entire life together. But all of that changes when Henry suffers complications from an elective back surgery in 2016. Henry goes into cardiac and respiratory arrest, leaving him with catastrophic brain damage. He spends weeks in a Florida hospital, barely responsive. Then, one day Henry is found dead in his hospital room. Almost immediately whispers start. One nurse reports having seen Jan pinching Henry's nose closed. Others believe she had interfered with his care in concerning ways. When their comments reach police, detectives interview Jan, but let her go. But when an autopsy shows that Henry's death was a homicide, investigators haul Jan down to the station for a formal police interrogation. Detectives are determined to establish if Jan killed her husband of 4 decades, and if so, why?
All right, you have a question about this report?
No, basically
Okay.
this report.
And just for the record,
it was actually
that's
when
not
I
my
looked
report.
at this. When they came, the police. In all honesty, after like halfway through, the thing, when I was talking to him, I said, "Do you mind asking me why you're here?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Detective Rugg said, "Well, there was a suspicion that they felt that you smothered your husband."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And that the doctor had made rounds in the morning, and it's in there somewhere, but I don't. Maybe I might have it on paper. And he was stable in a vegetative state at 8:30 in the morning. I said, "Well, I didn't even leave the hospital till around 1 o'clock in the morning. My brother and I, my brother's from New Jersey, flew and he stayed with me for about 4 weeks. We lived at the hospital. I basically slept on my husband."
Gary?
That was Gary, right?
Okay. Is he still here now?
No. The nurse that he had, my husband had prior a couple times, and she was very good. And there was very few that I felt that I could. Excuse me?
Carrie?
Yeah, I think that's her name. I'm really
His last nurse?
His last nurse,
Yeah.
The one that took care of him the night of, and actually she was there the next night. That's when they went and talked to her. And, she said, "I promise, I'll keep you posted. Why don't you just get a little rest?" I said, "Well, I'll go home, at least take a shower." I hadn't left for 5 days, blah, blah, blah. Went home and tossed her, blah, blah, blah. About 3:30 in the morning, and just bad feelings. I called Terry, and she said, "Jen, he's a little bit labored. It comes, it goes. I don't know what to tell you. Check back with me, or, obviously I will call you immediately, with her." She had another caseload like that. Well, I think I called her again about an hour later, and she said, I think you should come. She said, and I promise you, I will not leave his side. I will stay here with him, even if it's after the shift, and keep telling him that you love him until you get here. And I said, "Thank you very much." And that was it. And that's when I got there. And
what time do you think you got there? I know it's been a while.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was before the end of the shift, so she ends at 7. So I would say it was probably around 7:30, 7:40 in that ballpark.
Okay.
Because actually her shift was not over by the time I got there. And, when I originally walked in, I really didn't see a real difference in, obviously I could see the monitor. Monitor was at the nurse's station, which most of the time I insisted on that after the episode because I watched the whole code. I was in the room the whole time.
Nothing 2 days after the surgery?
Yeah,
Is that what you...
Yeah, and I literally was in the room. I literally watched the man go down and was screaming for help and got no help. I literally watched him put a pulse ox on his finger, drop to the floor, said it was 96. By this time he was blue. ER mode, just
96 is good, right?
No, yeah, 96 is fine. Yeah,
Okay.
but it went on finger dropping before.
Okay.
It just, like I said, ER mode, I click my watch. It's just an automatic thing. When you do trauma and you only have 4 bays and you got 5 people, you've got to decide, not who you're going to save or who you got, but who's got a better chance of it. I think at that point he wasn't even my husband, and I'm like, where's the code team? It's in respiratory. There was 2 PAs there. They kept trying to tube them and get the tube in there. They, I was like, will they get somebody that knows what the hell we're doing here? It was probably about 5.5 minutes, and in came our doc. I think his name started with M. I have his name somewhere. And within seconds, he had tubed them. He had started to ventilate him, but the whole time he was on the ventilator. He was on the monitor. He was invasive. There was no rhythm. There was no perfusion. The nurse doing CPR on him had 2 fingers standing on her feet. Now, my husband is a 260-pound man doing this. There was nothing moving on the monitor. There was no perfusion or all like that. So he had a definite 6 minutes downtime, no oxygen. You don't live 6 minutes on. I knew I lost him right then.
Right.
And in my heart, I prayed.
It's going to be hard to see.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
let alone happen.
They were fighting with me. You're not allowed to be in here, or this and that. And I'll be honest, I was not very nice. They said, it's a policy, and I said, you rip it out of your effing book because I'm not leaving. I'm standing back here, I'm not bothered. And the ER doc said, leave her, because by that time, I guess they had called the police. The police were ready, I guess, to come and take me out of there. The ER doc said, she stays right where she's at. Leave her alone.
Right.
Like that. And that was the episode. And then the next thing then they were moving him to CCU and the whole ordeal started. I actually thought he had a pulmonary embolism, which would have made sense. I knew they were going to give him a muscle relaxer, but I knew when, and I didn't know what it was because they had tried. I have them in my wallet, the 2 drugs. And, but when Dr. Kent came in, and this is the first time Dr. Kent ever laid eyes on my husband, it was the Saturday, so I guess it was his turn to make rounds. My husband's biggest frustration, all the way up until he could, was he could never move his legs after the surgery. First day, they said, well, it could be the anesthesia. Physical therapy was very good. They tried. He insisted on. They actually got him on the side of the bed, put the belt on him, and the woman said it's too dangerous to move him. And of course he's like, with me, Jan, you can move me. I'm like, Butch, please, please, you have to listen to the nurse here. If I go down, what's left? I only have one leg back in the bed, but he just wasn't hearing it. Just why. So apparently, I guess it must have concerned this Dr. Kent. I didn't realize it at first. And the day before, Dr. Martin and Celine, the PA, were in the room, and Butch's eyes were shut, and it looked like he was dissolved. You gotta understand something about my husband. That's basically how he always laid like that. And they had said to me, well, he's obviously over-sedated like that. And I said, oh, yeah? And he said, okay. I said, Butch. He said, what? I said, could you please turn around and talk to your doctor and the PA, please? Asked him name, rank, serial number, date, day, president. He answered everything.
This was the morning of the Saturday, the 9th?
No, this was Friday.
Okay.
Martin seen him.
Okay.
Okay. And that was like Martin thought he was over-sedated. So Butch answered every question. So there were 2 comments were that, well, obviously he's not over-sedated. I knew he was over-sedated. And but they said, so we're going to try another muscle relaxer, which is Soma. I didn't know what the drug was at that time, SOMA. So actually, when Dr. Kent came in, he introduced himself, and like I said, I have never laid eyes on him in his life, and he didn't know my husband either. But Butch was bitching. They mouse legs, and he said, why is he, and I explained to him that he hasn't been able to move his legs in surgery, and he's really being a pain in the ass. I want Foley out, I want this and that. I said, I'll be honest with you, and you get no help here at all. I mean, you call for help. I actually went home for maybe 2 hours because I had to let my dog out, get in the shower, throw back. Butch was down in the bed. I was the one most of the time pulling him up and all like that because I could never get any help. And I went to the nurse very nicely. I think it was like around 12 at night. And I said to her, I know you guys are very busy. I said, but if you could be kind enough, maybe if you guys could at least pull him up in the bed, I'll be back, to help you. No problem, we'll do that. Well, I walked through the door, I guess it was about like 2.5 hours later, and I can hear that man screaming from the elevator.
Wow.
And my husband doesn't complain. I mean, he is not a moan job. I gotta give him that, like that. Me, that's a story. I walk in the room, the man is in the same goddamn condition that he was, full of shit, just a mess. So, of course, I put the bed in Turnberg, and I'm trying to clean him. With my one good leg, I'm trying to hold him over, I got him cleaned up. And as I said then, that was a previous episode that had nothing to do with anything, but that's just to give you a little sample of nursing care that he got. But
so the next day he goes.
So the next day, Dr. Kev comes in, and he, to make rounds, and Butch is impresses his legs, and he says, well, he hasn't moved his legs at all. And I said, no. I said they had started him on this drug first. It was a muscle relaxer. It's in the flexural field. And he got, I think, 4 doses of that. So after, on that Friday, Dr. Martin and Celine seen him and realized that obviously he wasn't over-sedated. They said, well, they were going to try another medication on him and see if it would do better, too, for the muscles.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, when Dr. Kent was in there, like I said, he asked me some questions that, he hasn't been able. I said, no. I said, actually, PT has been here every day trying to get him up, and he wants to get up and this and that. And he said, okay, like that. And he walked out the door. I should have asked him about whatever this other medication was. So actually, he was down at the corner of the nurse's hallway, and he was on the cell phone. So as polite, of course, I stayed back. It's like my business, who he's talking to. And I can hear him, saying that I want a stat, MRI, I want the back, I want the thing, legs, this, that. No idea that he was talking about my husband.
Yeah.
He gets off the phone, and I said, I'm sorry, Dr. Ken, I don't mean to bother you, but Dr. Salim and Dr. Martin said yesterday that they were going to try him on a new medication for his legs. I honestly don't know what they did, but they probably charted it. Maybe you can look. He said, that's no problem. I'll take care of that. And I said, thank you very much for your time. I walked down the hall, go in the room, and next thing you know, stretcher coming in, this, that. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, your husband's going for a stat MRI. So now I know what he said was he was referring to my husband. Right. He was very concerned of why he couldn't use his back. He went down for the MRI. At that point, I don't know what time, I would have to look at that. My brother and I went outside to have a cigarette, and I came back up into his room. The room was empty, and a nurse yells, we had to move him across the nurse's station because he's really being incooperative, he's incoherent, he's not, acting right like that. So I walk in the room and I'm like, Butch, what the hell's going on? And he's like, Jan, get me out of here. The CIA's coming. He says, come on, you're my wife, get me out of here. CIA. I'm like, Butch, what is going on here? Now, I'd be curious, I don't know, between when he got back from that MRI, which I don't know exactly what time it was, to when they gave him that soma. I'm assuming it was probably within a 45-minute span. That after they ruled out that he didn't have a pulmonary embolism, which is actually what I thought he had. And when I realized he didn't have that, I obviously knew he didn't have any type of heart attack. I watched the monitor. That he had an allergic reaction to that soda.
Okay.
That's the only time. And when I was trying to hold him and keep him from pulling his Foley out, keep him from pulling the IV out, I'm looking for an ambu bag so I can at least ambu him. There's no equipment in the room. I'm screaming for them. Now, mind you, I am right across from the nurse's station. They're looking at me.
And this is when he goes 6 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
This was the scenario. Okay. Then finally they did come in, put that pulse ox, right. And finally, when the ER doc got there, that's when he actually got tubed and started perfusing. But it was over 6 minutes at that time. And then the story just goes on.
I know there's a lot in between, but let's jump to the morning of the 19th. You get there at 7:30.
Right.
You left at 1 with your brother. Right? You go back by yourself or with...
Yeah, because actually what happened was my brother was out on the deck and he was smoking and he was like that. And, I could see he was upset and he must have just fell asleep. He didn't know I was out on the ground. He's like, Jan, are you going to go to sleep? Yeah, and I went in the bedroom like I was. But I took a shower and I was just a nervous wreck. Again, I was smoking cigarettes and that's when I called Terry. And so when she called me, I didn't have the heart to wake him up.
Yep.
So I just jumped in my car. Yep. And, because, at this point, who knows? Because no one really knew. I mean, he never had really any change from really a vegetation things. And basically, they diagnosed him brain dead without really having the proper test to be done. He was supposed to have an EECG and a
what is it?
Right, it's actually I have the test here that they normally do.
That's a test to determine
actually determine whether he is brain dead. He wasn't. You could not actually call him brain dead because he still was breathing. And if you're breathing, then it's somewhere at the stem is what is it usually is.
And that test was never done? That's fine.
What happened was we insisted that my husband be moved. My younger daughter had just got in from a thing, and she looked at her father, and she's an ICU nurse, and she was upset. She went into whoever that idiot was who was the manager, I think named Mike, whatever the hell his name was. And she said, I want my father moved to a tertiary hospital that knows what they're doing, like that. I said, well, no problem. We'll get him moved, this and that. Social service went, and they looked into it, and they said the only place that does these tests to really tell conclusively, EEGs will give you a basic scenario, but they're really more or less diagnosed with seizures. But Dr. Scott felt that not only with the seizures, he really didn't do any real reflexes. He didn't, pull back. There's all kinds of neuro reflexes that he tried every day, and he felt between that and the EEGs that never got any better. How it was explained was they go from like 0.1, we should have seen in like a week or two of it, maybe 0.13 or something like that. Well, it either stayed at 0.1 or it was lower. But like I said, my daughter was livid, and so they said, no problem. They said, we'll have him transferred to Shands in Gainesville.
Okay.
Okay. So apparently, I don't even know what day it was at this point here now.
But they ended up turning him down, right?
Exactly. And that's when she went. So he never got the, apparently.
Well, what did you call it? EECG?
No.
I can get it later. It's not.
I can look. You can talk to me. I can.
Right. So you get back there around 7:30. Now again, we're going back to the morning of May 19th. Okay. Around 7:30, 7:40ish, you get there by yourself. Okay.
Correct.
And you said you didn't really notice a huge change from the day before, or from you would. Okay.
No.
All right.
breathing was a little labored. He was what you want to call, I would say, like a chain stoking type of breathing, which usually represents, now mind you, he's a diabetic and he had to have the insulin because I had made him a DNR. The only thing I insisted that the tube feeding never be taken off him. I would not starve him to death, and I did not want him off a monitor because I didn't trust them. And that's the only thing I could see like that. So at that point, it's like an oxygen type of, like a mask type of thing, I guess the best I can explain it to you. And what it does is it just gives you humidified air.
Just the tube into the trach?
Right, into the tube, right, to give him humidified air. Well, the bed was up, and I couldn't get, he's a big man. And so I put the bed down, to see if that, made any difference. Didn't really make any difference. So at that point, I took I snapped the thing off him because I couldn't get on top of him, and I put it on the side, which didn't make any difference one way or the other.
So now you call it a humidifier, right?
Yes.
But the nurses, they call it, wasn't he getting oxygen through that?
No.
No?
No.
All right.
They can put oxygen with it. At that point, half the time the humidifier was empty because respiratory was never there, but that's immaterial too. They could have had him on 2 liters. I honestly, be honest with you, did not really hear this. Did not really look. This kind of paper.
Okay.
So anyway, to make a long story short, I zapped that off and I climbed on top of him, and I trying to get my arms around him, and I just said, Butch, if you can hear me, help me, if you can hear me, let me know something, so I can get you moved. I don't know what to do, like that. I'll bring you home if this is what we need to do, just give me some kind of sign, and his breathing got more labored, but I wouldn't say labored. It's a hard, it didn't appear to me that he was ready to die right now. If I had walked in and looked at a patient at that point, I would have not been truly concerned.
Okay. All right. Now you said you put the bed down because usually the bed's up.
It could be up, down. Depends on it. Okay. He could be hanging out.
But it was up, and you put it down.
I put it down.
You take the tube, the humidifier.
I don't think the tube. The tube is straight. The tube is why he was.
No, the external, not the tube.
Right. He was off of bed. He no longer needed a bed. Okay. He was breathing on his own without any O2 at over 30%, which is room air.
Okay.
So
you take that external. I'm going to call it a tube. I know you didn't take. Okay.
Right.
So you take that tube off. What did you do with it? Do you remember?
To be honest with you, if he's laying here, it snaps here. When I took it, I snapped it and I threw it here. So it was probably laying here on his face. I didn't really pay any attention.
Down by his neck somewhere?
Well, if it's up here and I unsnapped it and I got on top of it, it would have been in this area somewhere.
Okay. All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then I was basically on top of him with my arms.
Are you laying in the bed? Or
I'm basically in that bed almost.
Right.
With like that.
Okay.
Begging him to help me is basically what I was doing.
Okay.
And
you said his breathing got a little bit labored, but you weren't super. You didn't think he was dying.
No.
Okay.
And Terry had said that she had just given him his.
I'm just about when you're doing this in bed with him, unhooked the thing. Are the nurses? It's just you. Are the nurses there? Are they coming and going? Do you remember what's is it like when you're having your moment with him, talking to him? Are you alone in the room with him?
No, nurses came in and out a couple times. Right. To tell you the truth, I honestly, Terry came a couple times, put her arm on me, said, you okay, like that. you know, it was wide open, the door. There was nothing shut or closed or, you know, I really honestly was not paying attention to any of the surroundings.
So while you're in bed with him, you're begging him for a sign. Then what happens?
Then his breathing really started chain stoking. And it was actually a breathing that, to me, honestly, he was going down because his sugar had dropped like that. He was going to go under because he had no more, you know.
No more what?
He had no more insulin in him, I guess. Okay. I don't know what was. I mean, only thing that I know that was ordered for him was they were giving him Dilaudid and I think Versed. It was 2 drugs. It was the only thing that they were giving him every 4 hours.
Now, was he still supposed to be getting his insulin?
No.
That was your decision?
That was my decision.
All right.
He was a DNR. When you are a DNR, there's all kinds of DNRs. That was another episode earlier, but it's immaterial.
So no insulin, just Dilaudid and Versed?
Just the pain medications. And
so while you're in bed with him, his breathing, you said chain stoke? What does that mean?
It's almost like you breathe a little bit, and then you pause, and then you take a breath. And it's like you're going downhill. Is what you're doing. You know, you're on your way out. I mean, that's the only way I can put it.
All right. And what happens then?
I had my head on his turned this way, watching him, and I kept saying, Butch, this is what you want. Let go. Just, you know, like that. And then he did a couple more stoking out. Right. And they came in.
So you were with him. He passed away.
I was on top of him when he passed away.
Okay. And you realized he did.
And they came in and they put they excuse us, can we put the pads on? Backed up a little bit because I know they throw a pad here, they throw a pad there. They looked monitor because they had to have a strip, you know, of asystole. And I looked over and it was asystole. And of course I don't know what I was. I was maybe in a shock. I don't know what I am today, to be honest with you.
If you're still looking for that thing, though, it's not important. I'm not.
Actually, with me, I'm like an obsessive compulsive person. If you notice that, it just drives me crazy when I, you know. But
okay.
So the next thing you know, I went after. And Terry came in, and everybody came in, and Terry was hugging me. Do you need anything like that? Then after they pronounced him dead, they pulled the curtain, they shut the door, I guess, to give me some time. And, you know, I just, I don't even know if I called any family members. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know what the hell I did at that time. And I came out of the nurse's station, and I said to the social worker, that he used to go. Actually, I had a whole sheet of paper because my older brother, who lives in Pompano Beach, was taking care of everything for me because that was beyond my thing. That they had made arrangements with Pino's to pick up Butch, and they were going to embalm him so we could get him home, so he could have a proper, because he wanted to be cremated. But, you know, they wanted, you know, the honor guards, the whole 9 yards. So, you know, they worked out between Souls, which is in New Jersey, and here. And I said, you know, but they can't do anything with the death certificate. So I had asked, you know, where or how do I get the death certificate? And nobody's answering me. No, that's my usual. And finally, the social worker said to me, well, you can go down and request his medical records. I said, yeah, I will do that, but
Yeah.
I'm asking you. She says, well, I guess that would be from the medical examiner. I said, well, why would it be from a medical examiner? I said, he's in a hospital. You know, and nobody's saying. No, I'm not in actually. And I looked up, and there was Dr. And he looked at me, and we were across, and I looked at him, and I went, and he's, looked down. I mean, he knows he's my husband, but anyway, he next thing you know, he was gone. So they said, well, go down and talk to medical records. So I figured, well, maybe medical records can give me this information since obviously none of these people know what the hell they're doing. So I figured I'd go down to medical records. I talked with medical records. So I signed a paper to get all his records, blah, blah, blah. And they said, what happens is you have to give permission for them to pick up his body and take it to Pino's. As soon as Pino's gets it, Pino's will release you a death certificate because they have to have a death certificate to be able to embalm him and ship him to Jersey. Walked back upstairs. The nurse manager was there and another woman, I assume, when I glimpsed at the badge, it had SUP. So I guess she was the supervisor, which I would assume for that particular floor. And she said, did you get all his belongings or anything? I said he has nothing there. I would carry like a shaver and stuff, and I would shave him every day back for or I'd have it with me. And she says, all I need from you, and she said, is that can we release his body to Pino's? And I said, yes. Yeah, I said, and I handed her the sheet with my brother's name. I said, but to be honest with you, all the information that you could possibly need, I call this number. My brother is aware, and he will take it through. I wasn't dealing with any of this part of it. And she said, I said, do you need me to sign? She said, no, your word's fine. That was it. Right. I went back in the room for a second, and I just shook my head. And I got back on the elevator, and I called Glenn to tell them that they would be calling them. And
That's your older brother?
Yes. And I drove home, and by that time, Gary's like, where the F did you go, blah, 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 and now he's, upset. Well, next couldn't have been 10 minutes later. Probably maybe an hour later. My doorbell rings. And it was Detective Rugg and...
Rungy and Mar? Jay?
Yeah, I don't know who, but what's the other guy's name?
Mar. J. Mar.
Mar, okay, yep. Yeah. They were at the door, and I said, can I help you? I thought they were collecting, everybody always collecting for some police, and I thought that. And they said to me, well, can you come down to the police station? We just need to talk to you. I said, to be honest with you, my husband just passed away. Yep. I've got 100 things to do. I said like that. And then they says, well, can we talk to you here? I said, absolutely.
I've listened to that. Yeah, you were very, I listened to that interview. Yeah.
They said, can we tape you? I said, yeah, I have no problem with that. So Detective Rugg was across from me at my dining room table, and the other detective was watching me, which I know he was watching to see whether I was there. I mean, I've been in the police world.
You're married to a cop.
Right, exactly.
Now, earlier, you had brought up you said they might have even mentioned it to you, that there was a question as to whether or not you smothered your husband.
That was
correct?
Right, but that came out after they started asking me questions and asking me what happened, and basically what I just told you is what I told them. Okay. And that's halfway through, that's when I said to them, can I ask you why you're here? Yeah. And that's when they says, well, there were some questions on whether you smothered your husband. And I just looked at him. I said, whether I did what? Okay. And they said, well, where was the bed when you walked in? I said, it was up. And they said, well, who put the bed down? I said, I did. They said, well, what about the syringe? I said, what syringe? They found the syringe in his bed. I says, well, I didn't see any syringe in his bed, but that's not unusual because I could find the finger stick.
So you didn't have you had nothing to do with that syringe?
I never seen it. I have no idea what to talk about.
Right.
If there was a syringe up there towards the top of him, I would assume again that syringe was probably to inflate and deflate his trach tube. Sometimes when it gets there, but like I said, I have no idea because I didn't see a syringe. And then that's what they said. Well, who put the bed down? I said, I did. And they said, well, why did you do that? I said, well, because I wanted to get on top of my husband. I said, he's a big man, like this and that. And they said, okay. And then what happened, and exactly what I told you. I unstabbed the thing, I put it here, I lay on top of them, basically gave them the whole scenario. And they said, well, technically, when we had got to the hospital, they said, we came there to talk to you and Dr. Martin. And Dr. Martin had gone back into surgery, and apparently, I guess you were at medical records, and when you came back up, we missed you. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're here. And I'm like, okay. And after I got done telling the story as I'm telling it, the officer over here, a couple times, I said, I got pretty nasty. I effed a couple of people, and the detective said, I think I would have done the same thing, blah, blah, blah. Just nice conversation. And he said to me, let me ask you something. That nurse, is she work tonight? And I said, to be honest with you, I'm not sure, but I think I remember Terry saying to me before I left last night that I'm on for 2 nights, so you can maybe get yourself some sleep. But I'm not absolutely sure. And they called me later on and said to me, do you know what time she come on? I said, well, she's a night shift, so that would be 7 p.m. Mm-hmm. And he says, it's something like, I'm going to go talk to that nurse. And I don't even want to talk to Martin because it's too conflicting, and I want to see what's going on. And he said he wanted to go talk to the nurse and see what she had to say, I guess, to compare whatever, or what I said. And he said, and I don't normally go to autopsies, he said, but I'm going to go to this one because something's wrong. Mm-hmm. That's exactly his terms.
And who said that? The
Rugg said
Detective Rugg?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So it was brought up that day, and I'm just going to ask you, Jan. Sure. All right. Did you smother your husband?
No, I did not.
All right. You've seen death certificates before. You've seen autopsy reports.
I've seen a couple autopsy reports, but I'll be honest with you, they're basically when I was like a nursing student, and you got to see, an autopsy like that. Death certificates. Well, both my parents died, so I did. But I mean, to say I deal with them, no.
Right. What, as a nurse for 40 years, trauma nurse, what do you think your husband's cause of death will be? What do you think? What do you think would be written on the death? What
the cause of death was, why he died that morning for me? I mean, is that I know basically what the cause of death was. But if I was the medical examiner and after I got all, which to me is a little bit funny because I would assume since they took him to...
What would you call it?
Hypoglycemia.
What does that mean?
Low blood sugar.
Low blood sugar? Okay.
That's the only thing possible.
Okay. I have the autopsy report right in front of me. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Henry Suchowski is your husband?
Mm-hmm.
Cause of death? Asphyxia?
So lack of oxygen.
Due to?
Occlusion of nose, mouth, and trach.
Okay. Manner of death?
Homicide.
And then how?
Autopsy finding available to complete by cause of death was now. Sergeant Rugg told me that they said that that the part that they did right then, there was no evidence of any suffocation at all, is what he told me that day. And he told me, but they have to send out a drug screen and like that.
There was evidence, okay? And my question to you is, I think it's obvious what happened, okay? The question comes, why? I mean, did you on the one hand, did you set out, from the beginning to end your husband's life, or did you do it to end his suffering? Which
I didn't do either one of it.
From what we've seen, from what we've talked about, all right, he went through a lot, and you watching it had to have been heartbreaking.
It absolutely was.
All right.
But I guess in the back of my mind is what I really needed to know is, did he have some brain function? Because it could take a long time for brain function to come back, that I would bring him home and start with the physical therapy. I mean, that was basically my question. But as for your question, to even thought to end his life, to end his suffering, to end his thing, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
How do you explain his nose?
The only thing that I can think of, possibly, I don't know what they mean by the nose, is the red part on his face is probably, when I was laying on top of him, the mask that was there, and I was on top of him, was made the red mark. That's all, yeah.
That's not what happened. Because earlier we talked about this, 10 minutes ago? You said the mask part was back here by you.
No, I didn't. I said I unsnapped it from here.
But you were gesturing towards the back, towards your ear.
Right, this way. If I lay on top of him, I unsnapped it from here, and it went over here, is what I said. And then I laid on top of him. And that was the side that it was red. I said I got on top of him, I put the bed down, I got on top of him, I unsnapped it, I threw it over on this side, and I got on top of it, which is the side that the redness was in the face.
It wasn't just one side, all right? The entire nose was red, all right?
No, it wasn't. No, it's not.
You want to see a picture?
Sure, absolutely.
That's not from an indentation. That's not. I mean, it's.
Now you've got to remember, over on this side, my husband just had surgery on his nose, and they had to do a flap because he had cancer. And part of this area here, he had a flap done there, which it was not red, but it was indentated and this and that. You could see the flap type of thing that he had from the surgery, which was, I think it was right after November, so he had that done in like December, I guess. December.
A nurse saw 15 minutes before he passed away. His nose was not like this. Okay, his nose became like this when you were alone in the room with him. All right. That's not from you call it the humidifier.
I don't know what I don't know what it was from. To be honest with you, I'm just telling you that.
All right. Well, that plays into the occlusion of the nose. Okay. It's obvious what happened there. Okay. That was from being pinched. All right.
Now that's you're saying that's from being.
What other tell me, I mean, prove me wrong. I mean, tell me how else is that? I mean,
if you're laying on somebody and if that piece of the mask is laying on that part of the nose where I have my hand around them.
Okay.
I didn't really pay much attention to the whole thing.
I also have a sworn statement from a nurse saying she walked in the room and you were pinching your husband's nose.
Oh, you did.
I do. All right. So again, is this part of some sinister plot you cooked up, or was it you were tired of seeing your loved one? You guys were married for how long? 40-something?
40 years.
40 years together since you were 14 years old?
So, well, I dated them since I was 14. I got married at 18.
Okay. Childhood sweethearts. Now you're seeing him suffering. All right. And is that why you did what you did?
I did not do anything. I did exactly what I told her to do. I did not suffocate my husband. I did not pinch his nose. I did not cut off his air. I did exactly what I said I did. What the redness and the stuff, the only thing that I can conclude that it could possibly be was the mask was underneath of me, and I'm not a small person too. Besides that, I have no idea like that. As for a syringe, like I said, I never seen a syringe in there, and them nurses. Well, I can go back to when they walked my brother and I left the hospital, and within 20 minutes, they moved my husband out of ICU, threw him down on the med-surg floor, took off his tube feeding, which was never supposed to be taken off. He calls me and tells me that the doctor says that he wanted him moved at 1:30 in the morning. That was what the signature was on the chart. You're going to tell me that you called Dr. Martin at 1:30 in the morning, and Dr. Martin said, oh, yes, I think it's time to move Henry Sahowski down to a med-surg floor and take him off tube feeding, which is against, it's illegal to do.
When did you prevent him from getting his insulin?
When I called, it should be a call report because my daughter was in the room and I didn't want her to hear me say that I was going to make him a DNR. So actually I called from my phone and I spoke with, I want to say, I think it was Melissa. I think the name was the nurse. And of course, I said, I want to make him a DNR, do not want the tube feeding stopped, do want him on a monitor. I understand that, he doesn't take up an ICU bed. I can't insist on that, but I can insist on him being on a telemetry floor because, I want him on a monitor at all times because, I don't trust them. I want to be able to see, and if he does die, I will tell from a monitor that they killed him. Or they did something to him. I can tell by reading the monitor. Okay. I was covering my ass from what I witnessed that they were incompetent, and my husband died on that night from lack of oxygen, the brain.
When your husband first had the surgery at the hospital, he was on some pain medicine on a patient-controlled pump. Do you remember that? Is that correct? Now, are we talking about the first surgery or are we talking about the second surgery? I'm talking about the April 7th.
Okay.
Do you remember him being on the hospital calls it a patient-controlled pain pump? All right. Do you remember what kind of medicine was in there?
Yes, the first one was in there was morphine.
Morphine?
Yes.
And then what?
And then I told them that morphine, because he had been on pain management before, but he really actually hadn't been on pain management for about 3 months or so. But, he did take OxyContin, for management, and morphine is not going to touch you if your brain receptors, your dopamine receptors in your brain have already accepted the OxyContin type of thing, that the only thing that really would work would be Dilaudid. I said, but that's up to the doctor.
And he switched it, right?
And he switched it, okay. Yeah. He said, you're absolutely right. He switched it.
So on that pain pump, the patient-controlled pain pump is what they call it. Did you ever press it for your husband?
All the time.
All the time?
Yes. And now I'll tell you why I pressed it, okay? Is my husband's fingers are very, very fat. And he was in a lot of pain, and he was pissed off because of his legs. So what I was trying to do, because technically it won't deliver unless it's green.
Unless it's what?
Unless the little pump thing is green. I mean, you can press it 100 times and it's not going to deliver unless it's green. He didn't know that. So I said to him, Butch, what you need to do is you just need to keep pushing the pump, and that'll help you with your thing. And I took his thumb and I did, but he basically, his hands he was third space and he had a lot of fluid in the arms. He couldn't really do that. I was doing that to occupy his mind to give him something else to do instead of concentrating on his legs. It had nothing to do with, you could have pushed that thing 950 times. He still is only going to be delivered 2 milligrams in an hour period.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't make any sense. By pushing it doesn't give you more meds.
All right.
You know.
So if the hospital says they checked it and during an 8-hour period, you or he or some combination thereof pressed it 264 times,
absolutely.
You'd believe that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. As a nurse, trauma nurse, level nurse for 40 years, do you know that pain medicine reduces respiratory performance? Okay. Does that have anything to do with you wanting to get him on more and stronger pain medicines? Were you trying to reduce his breathing?
I was trying to reduce his pain. And he wasn't on, what you got to understand, he was on 10 milligrams of morphine. With the Dilaudid, he was only on, I think, 1 milligram or 2 in an hour or 3, every 4-hour period. So technically it was not even a third of the dose that they were giving him of the stronger medication than the morphine. So if you really wanted to be technical about it, the morphine was a lot stronger and would have put him under a lot faster, you know, if that was the theory that we were going on. I wasn't going on a theory of putting him under. I was going on a theory of taking the pain away. Okay. So if we go to a drug and you give it a lot less, it still will work different on the brain itself. That was the thing. And obviously, when I discussed that with the doctor, he agreed with me that I was absolutely right. And, you know, I wasn't telling anybody to do anything. I'm not a doctor. You know, he agreed with me, and that's when he said, you know, well, it's going to be a lot less, but we'll try it. And I said, absolutely. That's when he did try it. That's when he came in the next day. That's when he said my husband was snowed. That's when I woke him up, and he answered all his questions. So
you were asking for pain medicine to reduce his pain, take away his pain. Is that accurate?
I asked him, for the right pain medication.
All right. So again, going back to a different nurse, again, another sworn statement saying that you asked her for pain medicine not to reduce pain, but to reduce his respiratory performance or something like that. Why would you phrase it that way?
What was that again?
That you asked for pain medicine to reduce his respiratory performance, or I forget what the word is, but you didn't ask for pain medicine to reduce his pain. You asked for it to reduce his respirations.
Who asked what? When
you don't remember that? You don't remember that?
I don't have to remember it. It was never done.
Okay. All right.
It was probably the same guy that dumped my husband down in the med-surg floor.
It wasn't a guy.
No. I don't know.
When you lowered his bed, and you said you did,
yeah.
Did you realize that would make it harder for him to breathe?
No, it would not make him harder.
It wouldn't?
No, it wouldn't.
No.
It's breathing on his own. The bed was lowered a lot of times. Every time they turned him, half the time, the bed was not up. The bed was basically down all the time because they turned him from one side to another. The bed was never really up. If the bed was up a 30-degree angle, that was about the max of it. When I got there, they had it up about 40 degrees.
So you don't think lowering it made it more difficult?
It absolutely did not.
No.
Absolutely did not. No. No.
All right. When did you first notice that your husband's nose was discolored?
I did. Actually, after the whole thing was dead, when he was dead. Okay. I didn't even notice it until I looked up at him. Because I really wasn't, I was just on top of him, actually laying this way again, where the mask was here, looking in his eyes there, and I was kissing him and I was looking at him, and I'm telling him, this is what you want, let go. If not, show me some sign, Butch, man, I'll put you back on all the medications. Help me make this decision, like that. And then that's when, I realized the breathing was, and the next thing you know, he was gone. And then that was the bottom line. And
so after lowering the bed,
right,
you get in, not only in the bed with him, you get on top of him. You made that statement earlier, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that would affect how he's breathing? I know if someone were to lay on top of me, or if I was, obviously I'm big, if I was to lay on top of somebody, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of trying to...
Do you think at that point that I was thinking of laying on top of him, whether I was checking his breathing or I was watching my husband
I think...
die? I mean, do you honestly think that my mindset would have been at that point? I mean, I
think based on everything, I think we know what you were doing. And like I said, I'm just trying to get to the why, you know? Like
you know what I was doing.
I said, I think I know what you were doing. And I think that's backed up by the autopsy report.
Mm-hmm. Which Dr. Martin probably paid somebody to do it, which will be proven in the end. Because it was a war between whether Martin was going to end up paying or whether the hospital was.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was the hospital's incompetency, which technically really it was. It was the 2 PAs and the 3 nurses in the room. Or, it wasn't the surgery itself, besides the one question at hand, and I guess it'll always be a question at hand, is why couldn't my husband move his legs?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, what happened to your husband on April 9th was beyond sad. I mean, horrible what happened to you. And for you to have to watch your husband from April 9th until May 19th, it must have killed you to watch that. To watch your husband go downhill like that. And again, that's why is that why you suffocated your husband?
I did not suffocate my husband. I would never suffocate my husband. I loved that man with everything I had.
I'm not saying you didn't.
And if it meant that I would take care of him in that vegetative state, that there was a chance of maybe coming around, I would have moved hell and high. I would have had that bed moved. I actually told social service to get me all that equipment to send it all home.
Is there a life insurance policy on your husband that you know of?
There was a life insurance policy on both of us. Yeah, we've had it for 17 years.
Okay. Do you know the name of the company that's with?
Yeah, Federal Fidelity, so but it started old line. They switched through the years.
Do you know how much money it is?
Yeah.
On your husband? How much?
Yes,
money?
it's the same on both. It's $250,000 on both.
What bank do you guys use?
Kansas.
Did that life insurance have anything to do with this?
Anything to do with what?
With suffocating your husband?
I did not suffocate my husband.
Because you see how some people may think that, right?
Some people can think whatever they want. Mm-hmm. I did not suffocate my husband.
Where I'm asking, was it...
All the money in the world would make a difference. $250,000 is going to make a difference of my life. Because my life is nothing now. My life is a shell. I don't leave the house. I don't know what to do without my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went from my first prom, my first cotillion, my first everything in my life was with this man. And I have a sprinkler system right now that I'm about ready to kick in because I can't figure out how to work the goddamn thing. I'm up on a ladder changing lights, on my pool. I don't really get any help. But, it's me, myself, and I. What can I say? All I really wanted, the life insurance meant absolutely nothing. I just wanted to have that part of it got over with, to be honest with you, and to have Morgan & Morgan show, it's clear as day. I have all his records, that they killed him on that night. It's written in black and white. I have the consults. I have everything. I have it highlighted in red. That he had the service. The ER doc itself said that his downtime was 6 minutes when he got there. I talked to the ER doc later on to thank him for what he did, and he was just still appalled that it took that long. There wasn't even a shadow of a doubt that but for my kids, I knew in my heart I lost him that day. I knew it was
Call from Nicole Self.
But do you mind if I get it?
Can you just give us 2 minutes?
Well, yeah, we could do that. It'll go.
There we go. I'm not doubting anything. I'm not doubting, I'm not doubting your love for your husband. Like I said, what happened to your husband was tragic. To watch him go through that on April 9th. But we need to come up with an answer for the official medical examiner's report. Okay. You know what petechiae is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You know when that usually results?
This right here.
But if it was to show up in someone's mouth, do you know what that usually means?
Sticking in the mouth. You bit your mouth. You could have bit the side of your mouth. You could have hit the side of your face. I get that a lot because my skin is very fragile. This is petechiae right here.
Or you're being suffocated.
Not usually.
Okay.
Usually suffocation, bulging of the eyes. I really haven't done very many. I'd have to get a textbook out to really tell you the clinical signs of it. I know one of them is basically, I would think it would be with your eyes itself. It would have to have something to do with the retina or something like that, because the eyes itself is where, the oxygen, where your main blood supply starts and comes down. But, unless you gave me a textbook or I could text it, it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a common diagnosis that I ever really wrote.
All right. Anything else you want to say?
Well, where is this investigator that you said were here? So basically, you got me here on when I asked you that whether I would need a lawyer. You knew all that this was, and I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed, because I really thought that if there was something or whatever that, somebody would have said something, or, he gave, that this is what, people are thinking, which did not happen. I take a lie detector test. I'll take anything you want. It doesn't make a difference. But yeah, I did not suffocate my husband, did not have it in my mind, never even thought about it. This to me is just, and now I can't even have, they allowed them to cremate my husband. I can't even have now my own independent examiner do that, because that's a lie. This is not true. I did Martin paid that woman off.
Call from Nicole Cell.
Yep. Where's can you grab your bag? Just gonna put all the stuff in your bag.
What are we doing?
You're under arrest. Look, you had $20 fell out. It's going right back in there, okay? Do you need your glasses?
For what am I doing?
Well, a little bit. You're going to be going to the branch jail. Do you need your glasses? Do you want them right now?
Well, if I have to sign anything, I need to sign them, like that.
Right now, you don't need. No, you don't. Do you wear them usually?
Just a week.
All right. Is there a case in here?
Mm-hmm.
You just put them right in here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right.
Can I smoke?
Not right now.
Hello.
Hello.
What are you doing?
Okay.
Stand up just a second. I'm going to pat you down and make sure you don't have anything on you. No weapons or narcotics or anything, do you? Okay. Turn around real quick. Put your hands up. All right. You can have a seat. Thank you.
Jan Sokalski is charged with second-degree murder. Investigators believe she may have killed Henry in the misguided belief she was ending his suffering, or perhaps she was hoping to collect his life insurance payout, or even launch a lawsuit against the hospital that did his back surgery. But before a jury can hear the evidence, or Jan can explain her actions, the case comes to an abrupt end. In 2017, just over a year after Henry's death, Jan is found dead in her home. Police rule her death not suspicious. With Jan gone, the true motive behind Henry Sokalski's final moments is something we'll never know for sure.